Hi, everyone. I'm Jendra with Truckstop. I'm a veteran of the transportation industry with over a decade of experience, and I've done everything from unloading trucks to large brokerage carrier sales by phone to face shipper client relationship management with some of the Midwest's largest companies. But enough about me. I'm here to help you today. Today's webinar is going to be about 30 minutes and is designed for those individuals who are thinking about becoming a freight broker or who recently became a freight broker. This is part one of a three-part series designed to give a high-level overview of exactly what it takes to become a broker and run a successful brokerage business. We'll have more information coming soon about parts two and three, but I want to be clear. Today, this is not a sales pitch. I'm not going to tell you to buy a training program or a service, but I am going to try to point out where solutions fit within the brokerage business model that Truckstop may provide. You run your business how you feel works for you. That's what's important at the end of the day, and that's what's great about being a freight broker. Truckstop is here to support you. Today's call is going to give you a good base understanding of how the industry works and the first steps you should take to set yourself up for success. And today, we're going to discuss the basics of being a broker, the basics of running a business, specifically a freight brokerage business, as well as discuss the basics of how to find freight and find carriers. So first off, what exactly is it that a broker does? Well, to put it in the simplest of terms, a shipper is going to hire a broker to move a load. The broker is going to hire a carrier to move the load, and then the shipper pays the broker pays the carrier, and the broker keeps the margin as profit. So essentially what a broker is a third party that helps connect shippers to carriers to get loads moved to their destinations. A broker can be asset based or non asset based. And what asset based means is that they own their own trucks, and non asset based means they own zero trucks. The job of the broker is to build relationships with shippers. So the broker is going to start to understand the needs of the shipper, what their schedule is, what their load and unload process is, what lanes do they run, what lanes do they potentially have the ability to run, what equipment do they have for their carriers, equipment requirements do they have for their carriers. The broker is basically an extended network of carriers for that business to have access to move their freight. But the advantage is that shipper is now only building one relationship because it's with the broker and not having to build multiple relationships with the hundreds of thousands of carriers out in the market. They also no longer have to track or facilitate the movement of the good. So yes, that is the broker's responsibility, is to track and communicate that between the parties. Now, the other part of the broker job is going to be to build relationships with the carriers and connect them with the appropriate loads to fill their trucks. So you need to understand what the carriers are looking for as far as their schedules, their lanes, their equipment, and their preferences. So let's break this down for 1 second. If we want to just look at two particular variables, so let's say home location and equipment type, if your shipper is a meat packing plant in Iowa, it's going to be in your best interest to start building relationships with Iowa-based carriers that operate a food-grade reefer trailer. So let me give you one more example before we move on. You've got meat packing plant A. They are the shipper, and they've hired you as the broker to move their load. They're going to give you $1,000. You have started to build relationships with food grade reefer haulers in this market, and you find a carrier to haul this load for $800. You then facilitate the movement, you track the movement, and upon delivery, the shipper's going to pay you $1,000 and you're going to pay the carrier $800. So you've made $200. The shipper has paid you and outsourced that particular portion of the job and the relationship process, and the carrier made $800. So everyone's happy. The final consideration to think about here, and this is where you have to think about how you're going to run your business from a cash flow perspective, is this process in general. So the load is going to deliver, and at that point, you are now allowed to invoice the shipper. At the same time that that delivers, the carrier is going to want to invoice the broker. So you have negotiated terms with your shipper on payments, and you have negotiated terms with your carrier on payments. These could be different, and there could be an overlap. So you have to think about how you're going to potentially pay the carrier if the shipper hasn't paid you. There's kind of a whole process of cash flow, but that's something to think about from a business aspect. We won't dive too much into it right now, but it is a very important piece of getting into freight brokering. Now, on to the next piece. You understand the process and the basic benefits from the relationship, but before you jump into brokering, what do you really know about the industry and how do you plan to learn more? If you have a washer and dryer and you need it fixed, who are you going to look for to do that? Are you going to look for an appliance repairman, a general handyman, and what's going to make you choose one over the other? And how does each one of these individuals make you feel more comfortable that they can handle the job? So essentially, what ends up being the pros and cons of choosing one over the other? Is it cost? Is it time? Is it the knowledge? Is it the relationship? So this is essentially what you're going to be doing when you're calling a shipper or carrier. If you have no industry experience, how are you going to plan to get some? If you do have industry experience, how do you plan to articulate that to the potential customers, and how do you plan to keep improving that knowledge on a day-to-day basis? You know, I'm guessing a chunk of you have probably had some relationship to the transportation industry, but you might not. Have you worked as a carrier and you're now moving into this space? Have you worked for a large brokerage and you're now going out on your own? Do you actually read industry publications like FreightWaves, Transport Topics, Heavy Duty Trucking, Fleet Owner? There are hundreds of other opportunities and publications. I definitely recommend that you start reading these if you intend to be successful, because when speaking with shippers and carriers, it's going to be extremely important to portray yourself as a knowledgeable industry expert. This is the way that you make yourself stand out, and this is the way that you prove to these individuals that you're even worth their time to take the phone call. Couple other things to think about. For those of you that have little industry experience, I recommend that you do some sort of shadowing or education. You don't have to, again, but at the very least, you're going to want to think about reaching out to a friend or networking to find some sort of mentor to learn more about the industry. It's going to be a challenge if you're coming in cold and you know nothing about transportation. If you do choose the formal training route, there are many broker programs available. You can actually check out our Truckstop partner marketplace at marketplace.truckstop.com and look under the training and education filter to find out some of our partners that actually run these types of programs. We also offer our own broker education training series through our RMIS Lite compliance product and the new broker package there. But again, you have to do what's right for you, but with no industry experience, you will need to do or have some form of industry knowledge if you want a higher chance of being successful. Either way, you need to be prepared to work extremely hard to build your book of business. Now, speaking of business, are you actually prepared to run a business? This is where your background, work experience, volunteer experience, and education are going to come into play. What have you done that translates into being prepared to actually run a business? Think about big picture. What are your strengths in these areas? What are your weaknesses in these areas? And understand where you might need help, and don't be afraid to ask for it. Number one thing, you'd actually be extremely surprised at the willingness for people in this community to help each other. And if you reach out and there are people that decide they're not going to help you, there's another person behind them that's willing to. So you're going to have to be okay with hearing no and hearing weird things and just moving on and doing what's right for you. The first thing that I recommend, though, before you even get into brokering is asking yourself why you want to be a broker and what are your goals. Is this a full-time gig? Are you looking for it just to be part-time? How long do you want to do this? 2 years, 30 years? Are you just trying to stay small and independent? Do you want to grow rapidly? Are you looking to just make X per month? I mean, from there, you're going to need to then think about what do I need to know to run a business? And again, on marketplace.truckstop.com, the partner marketplace, under training and education, there are some lists of a few partners that do this type of work, meaning they train you on how to run a business, and it can be helpful, but again, there's ways around it. Some of the things that you're going to need to think about regarding running a business are going to be, how do you set up your business in the state you reside in? What are the business tax implications, employee benefits, business related insurance needed, or other insurance needs that are outside of your typical cargo or transportation insurance. Do you have the right financial requirements to start and maintain your business? Again, we talked about the cash flow challenges. Do you have a line of credit? Do you have debt? You need to make sure that you have a financial plan for success before you just jump right out there. And then the next piece is tools. So, what tools do you need to run your business from a business perspective? It's not just a laptop and a phone and an internet connection, although those are going to be your keys. You may want to think about what type of bookkeeping software you're going to use, maybe what type of tax preparation software you're going to use. Excel, QuickBooks, TurboTax. Um, these can definitely be things that you do by pen and paper, but you have to think that that's a very manual process. Again, some of the Truckstop marketplace partners under marketplace.truckstop.com under the financial services area are going to help in these areas in terms of funding, potential tax solutions, and potential bookkeeping solutions. And they may be able to help you get your feet, get things rolling and get your feet wet and get off and running. The last piece to think about is your customer management system. And when I say that word, I don't want to scare you that you need something massive like a Salesforce. You don't. A customer management system is really just exactly what it is. It is a system. It's a piece of paper, it's a whiteboard, it's an Excel sheet, it's a Google Doc, but it's something where you have your shipper customers and prospects and your carrier customers and prospects, and you're able to manage where you are at the stage of relationship with each of those. Now, it's been a whirlwind of information over the beginning portion of this webinar, but you've made it this far. You understand what a broker does, you understand how to learn about the industry, you understand what you need to know about running a business. Now we're going to get back to brokering. So your broker business has no need for carriers if you don't have freight for them to haul. So how do you plan to find freight? There are many different ways to find freight, but they're all going to have one thing in common, and that's it's going to require you to pick up the phone, knock on a door, or send an email. So where are you going to get your leads from? Well, that's all about prospecting. A couple of different ways you can do it. So first, some people say, well, I'm just going to buy a business directory for contact information and start calling away, which is great, but is it a good use of your time to just go down a list and say, do you have freight? Yes, no. Do you have freight? Yes, no. It may be a complete waste of time. Now, some people that have come from the industry or have built relationships in the industry are going to find that leveraging their own personal networks first is going to be a good way to get things off the ground and running. For example, a friend is going to be more willing to overlook that you've just started in the industry if there's a long history that they know you're a knowledgeable person, you're a trustworthy person, and they can work with you. Because that relationship is going to give you the advantage of saying, you know what, at a certain point in my career, somebody had to give me the benefit of the doubt. So if you're starting off, those are the people that are more likely to overlook it. The next piece, though, is you're eventually going to hit a point where you need new business and you're going to have to do it the good old fashioned way. And that's cold calling. So that's emailing, maybe even text messaging at this point. But this is where you need to be prepared to work hard and find freight because it is competitive out there. But before you just start going to Google, making phone calls, you're going to want to make sure you have a strategy. So what's going to separate you from every other phone call a transportation manager or shipping manager fields on a given day? What's going to give you the opportunity to work with their business? And to be honest, it's going to be a combination of timing, luck, and the most important piece, being well prepared before you get the customer on the phone. I'm going to say that again, being well prepared before you get the customer on the phone. Too many brokers are just going to start calling and asking for freight. They're going to accept all kinds of freight before they have carriers. They don't research the type of freight the shipper is moving before they even call, and they just basically agree to haul everything. Or they're too vague, and that individual is just not going to give them the time of day. So it's very time consuming to just start to say, I'll take anything, and then be awarded anything, and then expect to find carriers that are also just going to haul everything, especially when you're starting out. You may want to start out by trying to find a niche, a state you're going to work in, a lane you're going to work in, an equipment type you work in, an industry you work in. This way you kind of have a small little pot that you're trying to pull from and you're trying to build around as you grow that brokerage. So for example, hi, I'm Brett. I work for freight brokerage ABC. We specialize in full truck movement of aircraft and aerospace products. And at that point, I've kind of already made the niche. Okay, this is what this person does. They've got a specialty. And then I'll start my probing questions because at this point, I've kind of maybe got the person on the hook. I'm hopefully already talking to the right person, but at that moment, I've done that pre-call planning and I'm prepared to start to build that relationship now. So you have to start to be able to build that relationship the moment you get them on the phone. So before you get to this point, you do need to do some of that pre-call research, and even finding a shipper might be part of that. So let's kind of stick with my aircraft example, and I'm going to kind of run you through something here. So give me a second to share my screen, and we'll get off and running. So let's stick with my aircraft example and try to find a solution utilizing Google. So first, we're going to try aircraft parts. Add the S in there. And we get kind of this really complex. Here's some advertisers. I've got a couple in my particular area where I live, but that may, just because I live in a certain area might not mean I have to work there or that's the best place for aircraft parts. So from personal experience, I know that Arizona tends to be a good place to look for aircraft parts. So I'm going to start Arizona. Now I've narrowed it down a little bit more, but I want to get even more specific. So I want to actually look for using terms that are going to stick out. So when if I had gone the sports route, I might end up with like a Dick's or a Walmart or something. So I want to make sure that I'm actually getting people that are producing the product because they're going to have kind of the full truck freight. So I might be looking for words like manufacturer. I'll use manufacturer here, but warehouse, distribution, those are other good terms to look to use. And I'm going to actually narrow it down again. And I'm actually going to put in the Phoenix zip code here, 85034. Boom. So now I've narrowed it down an industry, an area, and a more specific type of term. I like to go to this maps area. And what you're going to see here is you're going to get a little bit of a different view. And now I can actually take a quick, pinch and look at what I'm looking at. So we got an aerospace company. Kind of look at what their building looks like. Again, aerospace company. Here's another one. Now in this one, I can actually see this is freight. So this is something going on a flatbed. So this could be something useful. These guys also manufacture, but I'll give you another example of something odd. Aircraft supply. So we have a supply store. Kind of looks pretty small. A couple small dock doors. Not sure what they might have, but I'm going to stick with this particular example. So I've already got a phone number and a website. So let's check out the website. Give it a moment to load here. Perfect. So I've got manufacturing excellence. Great. They manufacture. Let's go to About Us. Leading manufacturer. Can look at the management team. Get into the manufacturing area. Okay. Got some more information about what they do. Sorry if I'm scrolling pretty fast, but I might go directly to contact. And here we go. They've got a Chicago facility and they've got a Phoenix facility. So now potentially I've got a Phoenix facility. I've got an address. I've got a couple different contacts. If I go to the About section, I've got some other names, and I've got all this website information that I can look at. So that's great. So I've kind of got you kind of started at how you look something up. I'm going to give you one more piece of advice. So now I'm on, this is a site called LinkedIn. I hope all of you are familiar with it. If you're not, I would suggest you get familiar with it. But I could put that company name in here. I'm going to put in Truckstop just to kind of show you an example. But I put that company name in, and now I've pulled up that company page. What I can also do is go to the people page, and now I can start to look for who works here. So I can actually look for their titles. So I would be looking for titles like transportation manager, titles like warehouse manager, operations manager, kind of see where the individual may fit in the decision-making process. And that way, when you make that phone call to this particular group, you're in a situation where you already know you might be talking to the right person, or you at least know who to ask for, and you sound knowledgeable. So now at this point, I've done some great pre-call research and I found out where they ship from. I have an idea what they might ship. I have an idea who might be their decision maker, and I have some basic contact information. It's now up to you to make that call and actually start building the relationship. So the next piece here is you just got awarded your piece of freight, but you realize you don't have any carriers in your network. Now what? It's back to the same type of strategy. Pick up the phone, utilize business directories, utilize your personal network, scratch, claw, and fight to find a carrier who will do the job and do a good job and be the right fit. Now, don't always be worried about who's the cheapest. You're going to get what you pay for. Think about it in the term of a business sense. If the shipper just gave me one load and I do a great job for them, I might get hundreds of loads over the lifetime of that relationship. This could be a massive long-term value for you. If you try to make an extra 50 bucks on margin on this load, you could blow a relationship that is literally going to yield you thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars over the lifetime value, all because you wanted to save 25 bucks to put a carrier on there. The most important thing when you're looking for carriers is that you try to find someone that A, can do the job, B, is trustworthy, and C, I think I said it already, they're trustworthy and they're reliable. Okay. So the ways you do that is by vetting the carriers through processes like joining a load board, which doesn't always mean the carrier is vetted, but typically they have some sort of rating system built in. Um, there's also the company's online presence, Joe Schmo Trucking. When you're on the phone with them or you get a hold of them or before you call them, Google them, see what people say about them. They might say a lot. But a great way for you to find capacity when just starting out is a load board. One particular load board is going to be truckstop.com. So what you can do on truckstop.com is when you have that load, is you post the origin of the load, you post the destination of the load, the dates, the equipment type, potential, the rate you're looking for, the weight. You basically post every single thing you need to know about the load, and this gives an opportunity for carriers to actually reach out to you and accept calls from you. So by posting this load from Phoenix to Las Vegas, you might get 3 calls on this load. And if you detailed it correctly, you might have identified 3 carriers who like to haul aerospace loads. One might be able to take this load, but now when you call your next shipper in the area that you can talk to them about, you now can say, hey, I know 3 shippers that I have relationships with in your region who haul aerospace loads. So you've kind of just slowly built your network there. And in addition to being able to post your load, you're also going to have the ability to look for trucks. So for example, I can actually search for Phoenix to Vegas trucks in the area, and it's going to tell me who's posted their trucks on the load board that they're available to be filled. And then I've also got their contact information here, so you could start reaching out there. So now to go back to our previous point, at the same time you're asking those carriers what you're looking for them to haul, you might also want to ask, what do they like to haul? Because the carrier called about an aerospace load might also say, I like to haul rolls of paper. They're nice and heavy, they're quick to load, they're quick to unload. So now you've got, hey, I've got this carrier I have a relationship with, and I can look for paper companies where he likes to run to find him a load. And then when you get that load, you post that load, and then you start to find more carriers who like paper. Now you've got a little bit of paper business going on, a little bit of aerospace business going on, and you're kind of filling the gaps as they come to you. It really is all about building and scaling through hard work and relationships. Let me say that again. Building and scaling through hard work and relationships. Relationships are the lifeblood of this industry, and being a successful broker is all about relationships. Remember, the carriers and shippers are fielding calls all day. What separates you from everybody else? And lastly, with a load board, you're also going to find a myriad of tools to help you with other parts of your business, like rate estimates, real-time rate insights, and that's going to help you understand what would a shipper pay for this particular load. So what should I offer to accept it from a shipper? And what would a carrier pay for this type of load? It's also going to help you understand things like market density. If there tends to be more trucks than loads in a particular part of the market, well, due to supply and demand, the cost to hire a carrier in that area is actually going to go down. So it's going to be helpful to understand those types of things when speaking with carriers and shippers. All right, we made it. So to quickly recap what we discussed today, we talked about what a broker does and how they make money. We talked about what knowledge you need to be successful in this role, and we talked about what you need to think about and understand from a business perspective to set yourself up for success in a brokerage business, as well as tips and tactics to find freight and find carriers. And of course, one of the most effective ways to find and build a carrier network is through load boards. Now, becoming a freight broker can seem overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. There's a lot of resources that can help you. Take the time to educate yourself on the industry using the resources we've listed here, and make sure that you keep an eye out in the coming weeks for part 2 and 3 of the webinar series where we'll dig deeper into the ins and outs of becoming a freight broker. Again, check these industry resources: Freight Waves, Fleet Owner, Trucking Info, Transport Topics, the Wall Street Journal Logistics Report. It's a great way to just continue to stay abreast and build your knowledge. There's also regulatory resources about what you need to do to make sure that you're compliant with what's going on. And we've also got our Truckstop resources, including the upcoming webinars, our data, our Truckstop blog, and also we do have a Get Your Authority program. So for those of you who haven't gotten your authority, you can actually do that through Truckstop, through our Get Your Authority program, and we will actually give you a couple of months of the load board kind of built into that program, along with how we help walk you through this. If you want to learn more, you can contact Truckstop at 888-364-1189, or you can explore Truckstop's website at truckstop.com or the Truckstop Partner Marketplace at marketplace.truckstop.com. Lastly, if you're really having some struggles, you can reach out to me directly, Brett Jendra at truckstop.com. I'd be glad to get you in touch with the right resource to help answer your questions if it's not something that I can do. Lastly, I really want to say thank you to everyone for your time. I know we're in the logistics industry and everyone's busy, or you're about to really jump in head first and be extremely busy, but please make sure to pay close attention to your emails and our website for parts 2 and 3. We look forward to building a long relationship and helping you become a successful broker. So on behalf of Truckstop, thank you for your time.